So today I want to show you a couple of ideas you can try with the new note detector from VoxGlitch. We collaborated on this module together with the ARP sequencer. Both are available for free and they work really nicely together. So we will start really with the ArpSeq and then look at a few more examples. So again, the note detector was created to work with the ArpSeq module, and this is a common technique for creating interesting rhythms. I have here a chord with 4 notes, C, D, E, and G. Right, the arpeggiator, as you can see, is already running. I really recommend watching the video I did about it, by the way, giving it a try. And what I will do is I will send the pitch to the 4 note detectors that I have here, right, if I zoom in a bit. Right, so the actual pitch output will go to the CV input or the CV inputs of the note detector, right, and from there to trigger 4 percussion voices. I have here Tala from Seaside Modular that will generate all sorts of percussive voices. Right, so I'm going to send this to 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs. Right, already we get something, and that is a gate whenever the ARP hits the note C4. Right, again I have here 4 notes on the chord C, E, C, D, E, and F, and whenever it hits C4 in this case, we get a trigger. Since all the note detectors are set to C4, we get 4 triggers at the same time, but of course I can choose different notes. So the first one I will leave at C4, then I will go with D4, then E4, and then F. Right, so basically the notes from the chord. Right, and you can see that the note detector will convert the selected notes into a trigger. Right, each time the chord or the arpeggiator hits one of these notes, we get a trigger that triggers this percussive voice. Now, for the moment, it's a bit too much. It happens a bit too often, right? There is no variation. So what I can do, I can, for example, play with the shape of the arpeggiator, right? If I go, for example, reverse or pendulum, or even random. Right, I will set this, I will bring this back to pendulum. Right, I can also play with the cycles and probability of the gates. Again, go have a look at the video, it's such an amazing module. Right, so I will set this to 5 steps. Let's say here, let's say this will happen every 2 cycles and this every 4. And here we have a bit with probability. Right, so already there's a bit more space. I can play with the transposition, right? Let's say, for example, here we'll have just 3 steps, and sometimes it will transpose the notes, right? Let's say something like this, for example, right? Sometimes it will transpose the notes and they will hit different notes of the chord. And let's say also this will happen every 2 cycles. Right, so again, there is more variation. And we can even add variation by changing the chord and triggering other voices. Right, so here I have 4 more note detectors. They are set to different notes. I will connect them to trigger other samples here on this percussive module. Right, and again I will connect the pitch to all 4 of them. Right, so again when they hit different notes in this case, they will trigger different samples. So if I change the chord to have those notes, right, you have different samples, and again I can sequence this thanks to the CV input here on the chord key. I have here steps from Aleph Beats that will do exactly this. Right, so there is variation, we get something interesting, an interesting rhythm, interesting percussion. Right, I'm sending a copy of this also to a bandpass filter and a delay just for fun. It sounds like this. Right, I have here also some steady drums, gate sequencer, sequencing a few drum voices. Right, and of course a bass with key call from the Faco going through this chain, distortion, chorus. So again, the node detector was meant to work with the ArpSeq, but it can also work with other sequencers. Here, for example, I have a sequence with sleeps. This is sequencing palette, going through some delay, and I have a copy of this going also through the new Nimbus module from SurgeXT, which is basically clouds. Right, it will sound like this. Right, so sleeps is now playing a few notes with some variation to them also. You can see this here. I have here 4 view from impromptu, and you can see the notes it will play. It's quite quickly, but I think you can recognize the notes there. Right, so I can use this sequence to trigger, for example, a bass. So again, I will use the pitch information with the node detector. Right, this will go to the CVE, and I'm going to leave this at C4. You can see C4 is also here between the notes. Right, and I have the bass voice again is kick all through some chorus, some distortion, some delay. Right, so I'm just going to use this to trigger the bass. Right, so again, whenever this sequence from sleeps hits C4, the node detector will trigger the bass voice. I have here another sequence. This is the ADDR sequencer, sequencing the FM2 VCO also from Surge. And again, you can see here the notes it will generate. Sounds like this. Right, and here I have a tremor 2 with a kick and a hi-hat, right, with 2 different delays, one for the kick, one for the hi-hat. Right, and you can see that here, I hope you can see this, it's quite quickly, but maybe you can see this, it has 2 G notes. This sequence from the ADDR sequencer generates 2 times the notes, or the note G, once G4 and once G3. Right, so they are in different octaves. But I would like to trigger the drums with both of the notes G, with both of the G notes, right? Never mind on which octave. So here on the node detector, I will set the note to the note G, right? And if I take the octave here all the way down, you see it just says G. In this case, it will recognize any G note, never mind on which octave. Right, so again, I will use the same pitch, and the output will trigger this kick and hi-hat. Another interesting thing to explore is making events happen only at specific times according to a random stream of notes. So here I have the probe key from impromptu. It's randomly sequencing dark energy. Let me unmute this. Right, you can see here, if I zoom in a bit, I have a few different notes selected on the probe key, each of them with probability. Right, so every time a different note will be selected. Right, and again I can use the node detector, and in this case I'm going to use it to send this voice into a delay only at specific notes, or at a specific note. Right, so what I will do is I will send a copy of dark energy to a VCA that I have here. Right, a copy of dark energy is going to this VCA. Right, I have already an envelope controlling this VCA. This will open the VCA. Right, and from there, from the VCA, this signal goes to a delay. In this case, it's Prince of Perception. Right, so let's say that I want this to happen only when the sequence reaches any F note. Right, so I will set the note Opalach to F, take again the octave all the way down, so never mind on which octave this note will be, it will still be selected. And again, now I have to send the pitch to this node detector. Right, and the output will gate the envelope. Right, so again now, whenever the probably key or probe key reaches the note F, never mind on which octave, dark energy will be sent to the delay. By the way, on the node detector in the right-click menu, you can change the output mode to gate also, and also you can change the length, right? So depending on the envelope you're using, you might want to change this to a gate or to a trigger. Right, I can also use the node detector to trigger other sequencers, right? So here I have the ADDR sequencer, right? It will sequence the classic VCO. I have here also a wave shaper to sound like this. Right, you can see here that it's set already to the node D. Again, never mind on which octave. So every time the main sequence plays a D, the ADDR will advance one step. I have it connected to the clock input of the ADDR sequencer, and again all I have to do is connect the pitch information. Right, and again the probe key is more or less random or with probability. Right, so the things will change, the notes will change, dark energy will go to the delay at different times, the ADDR will be clocked at different rates. Right, I have here also a bass, again with a key call from Befaco. In this case I'm using again a probe key, but I'm not really using it for pitch, just for probability. You can see I have 4 notes selected. Right, and in this case each time the note C will play, again never mind on which octave, also this bass will play. Right, by the way, here as you can see on this node detector, I'm using also the clock input. Right, this is coming from the probe key. Right, which means that if the note C is selected multiple times in a row, it will still play each of those times and not just the first time, not just when there is a change in note. Right, so you might want to utilize also the clock input. Here I have another node detector. In this case, it's set to a different note, again selected from the probe key, and it will trigger a burst generator. It will trigger a burst of triggers that will trigger then tremor 2 as a sort of a glitchy sound going through some delay. Right, so you can see how many interesting things you can explore with this little module. If you have more ideas of how to use it, please share them in the comment section. Thank you for watching. Cheers.